everyone, and thank you for joining today's episode of The Matter. My name is Ada. Today, we're going to be talking about child molestation or child sexual abuse.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tosin. I'm a co-host on this show, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Hi, my name is Andy. I'm a co-host for this program, and today I have the singular honor of introducing a very, very important guest on this show. Her name is Ven Lannap. She's an educationist, an actor, a social entrepreneur, an advocate for early childhood education, and an anti-human trafficking advocate. And most importantly, someone I'm right proud to call my sister. Hi, Ven.
Hi, Andy. And hello, everyone here.
Hi, Ven. Welcome. We're happy to have you here. So,
Thank you.
Yeah. So we're just going to go on, and the next thing we're going to do right now is watch a trailer of a movie called Happiness. And Happiness, I'm not going to tell you much about it. I'd like you to watch it. It kind of talks, the theme is connected to what we're going to be talking about today.
Don't you remember we were approved for adoption abroad?
Uncle, what did you do that for? It's not just a peck on the lips. My family members do that to each other all the time.
So do you always have to do that?
Hello? Anyone there?
No, please don't. No. What's it called?
I don't know why she would lie.
She's demon possessed.
She barely says a word to anyone. I was hoping she'd speak to you at least.
Whatever it is, take it like a strong girl that I raised you to be.
And we're back. Thank you. I know that was a bit difficult. Some part of that was a bit difficult to watch. I'm coming straight to you, Ven, with this. I know you have watched Happiness. You've seen the whole movie, not just the trailer. And it sort of touches on themes that we're talking about today. So if you could just shed a bit of, more light on what your thoughts are on Happiness, especially in view of what we're talking about today.
Okay, thank you, Ada. It's a heartbreaking film, but the reality of what child abuse is. So, Ada, you talked about child sexual or child molestation as the theme of discussion today, but that is a form of child abuse, and that's what we see in the film Happiness. And Happiness did not just start with sexual abuse. It started from when the father refused to pay attention to her needs, her school fees, and thought of sending her to his sister or her sister somewhere to be a nanny. Now there's neglect there, and there's emotional abuse there. He is abusing her and insulting her. What is she taking in? How is she feeling? Nobody bothered to care until she found herself. Of course, permit me to say, Obodo Ebu is what we in Nigeria say. As long as you're going abroad, it's just the in thing. But what happened to her there? It takes the form of many cases. Some we don't have to take it out there to either UK or, in fact, take it abroad, like out of Nigeria. But even within Nigeria, these forms happen, whether by asking the child, pressuring the child, or forcing the child. You've done something wrong to that child. As long as the child is younger than the age of adulthood, which is 18 years, you've abused her. So Happiness went through all that, from her father ignoring her and forcing her to go where she didn't want to go, not even thinking of the best interest of her, and refusing to pay her school fees. He has neglected her. That's a form of child abuse. He has abused her, insulted her, and that is a form of emotional abuse. What is it doing to her mental state? And then she comes and experiences this, another in the sexual abuse, another type, because there are different ways that sexual abuse can happen. So the uncle forcing to hug her, himself to hug her, hugging is not bad, but what's its intention, like in the movie, as we see at the end? And so we find that at the end of the day is the common thing of raping her. But it goes beyond that. What does he say to her? The peeping that he was like doing when she was bathing and all of that. So she went through that. And at the end, depressed, nobody is thinking about it, just wondering, from refusing to take a cigarette. You know, I watched the whole short film, not just the trailer, so people permit me, but her even smoking is a form of telling people that something is wrong with me, but nobody was listening. And then her taking the bold step of saying, I'm going to share because there's a way out with me. For me. And then she goes to share, and what happens with what she shared? She told someone her story, but instead of the help she needed, they were calling her a witch or a demon-possessed child. So that in itself bring out a lot of elements of what sexual abuse, the aftermath, the effects on a child is. Now it ended with her running away, but what do we know about her becoming an adult and acting in a certain way? We don't know that. So Happiness is actually a heartbreaking film, but it's also a relevant film to watch and see that when you watch that, you can learn, you can be enlightened to know that, okay, if this is happening, or if I see a child acting different from her usual self, from being a cheerful, outgoing child to becoming suddenly quiet and withdrawn and not saying a word, then something is wrong. Not all such behaviors lead to a child being sexually abused or abused, but it is good to find out. It's good to sit with the child to find out. So I'm going to just stop here about Happiness, but I encourage everyone. I don't know when the launch is, Ada, or if it's out there, but people need to watch this because it tells a lot. I love the fact that it started from our own local Nigeria here, our own nation here, and it takes it out of Nigeria. And it's a form of saying that, look, it's not just the going abroad, but what is a child going to do abroad and what is a child doing out there, you know? So, yeah.
So thanks, Ven. That was really good. That was really helpful to hear. And, I think one of the first things, so I think, yeah, we're talking child abuse, specifically focusing on sexual abuse. And we just wondered if you could sort of give us some sort of, what's your view? What is it actually? What does it mean? Just for those who aren't sure, because, I'm aware some people are like, I don't know if what's happened to me. Is it sexual abuse or not? So what is it from your expert view?
Okay, before I really say what sexual abuse is or child molestation is, I want to hit on what child abuse is. Okay. Because they mean almost the same thing. It's just that one takes a sexual form. Child abuse is when an adult or is when an adult or an older child, whether adolescent or an older child, does something that causes harm, whether by doing the thing or not doing the thing. Cause harm to a child that leads to injury, death, emotional abuse, mental abuse, and neglect, then we call that child abuse. Now, when we say child sexual abuse or child molestation, we are saying that when an adult or an older child, involves a child in sexual activities, whether the child says yes to it by asking or by pressuring or by forcing or using other means, and you're saying, let's do this together. It could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be mental. But as long as you involve that child, then you are sexually molesting or abusing the child.
Oh, wow. Wow. Thanks for that. So, that actually brings quite a few things to mind. Just in terms, I think, Ada, there was a time we saw there was some research done where they said was it 1 in 4 adults have been sexually abused as a child. And I think that we've seen so many reports come through in recent times of what's going on, in different parts of the world, but, we're sort of focusing on Nigeria and the different kinds of sexual abuse that happens. And I wonder, it would be helpful if you could sort of shed some light So yes, people now maybe hopefully now have an idea of what it means, but what are the dangers of it? Why is it so harmful? Because I'm not sure everybody has the same view that is harmful, especially for people who are now adults and went through it as children, and for them that's their norm. So if it happens to a child or they do it to a child, they think that's how it should be done. So what are the risks there? Why should
You
we be
just
worried?
You just hit one of the risks right there. If it's done to a child that grows up to become an adult and nothing is done, there's a high tendency that the child that became adult would do that to another. So will become the abuser or will become the culprit of doing that to another child and thinking, oh, it's normal. So that's one of, like, it's a high risk. It's like a vicious circle. It goes on and on. But before I hit some of these dangers, let's give examples of what sexual abuse is, especially to our Nigerian audience, even to everyone out there that doesn't know. It doesn't have to be physical. It doesn't have to be rape. It doesn't have to be penetrating, either using fingers. Allow us, we're going to talk this thing real as it is. So it doesn't have to be you penetrating the child, fingering a child, or you penetrate with your manhood, or the woman playing with the child's. It doesn't have to be that, but that is one of it. What do you say to the child? What do you show the child? You know, there's some movies that are called adult child and parental guidance or stuff. What type of movies or films do you show the child or allow the child to watch? So there's this child pornography. You know, what do you involve the child in doing? Let me give an example. In Nigeria, I would say Africa, but my Jerusalem is Nigeria. So let me use that. Growing up, at that Tosin, even Andy, you can bear me witness. A lot of us young girls have experienced an adult, especially the male adults, hitting our buttocks, our bum.
Yep.
You're walking and they're just hitting. Why are they hitting? That is a private area. And so that's an abuse. They might have done it consciously or consciously or unconsciously, like intentionally or not intentionally. That is not, for me, is still an that. And that kissing on the lips, I know some cultures have it, but do we really have it in Nigeria? Let's be real to ourselves. When an adult does that to you, what is the intention? And to a large extent, when they do that, there's a hidden motive. So I'm just bringing all of that. And then what do you give the child to read? What discussions, adult discussions, do you have that gets to the ears of that child? Because remember, the abuse doesn't have to be just physical. It also has to be emotional and mental. So as the child is taking you, become like, I've experienced kids that suddenly are saying things that they're not supposed to be saying, sexual things. They're so aware. They're so aware of what sex is. They're so aware of what the private area is, and they do. They're more aware than their age. You want to dig in and say, why are they more aware? Because a form of abuse has been rendered either directly to them or by adults being careless with what they say, and that's neglect that leads to that. And so the child is growing up and all these elements are coming in. So I just wanted to shed a little bit more light too, so that we know practically this is what we're talking about when we say you're causing harm either by acting or failing to act in a certain way that causes the child to behave or be like that. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Andy.
While speaking, it was gender sensitive in the sense that most times, and from what people have been saying, as if it's only the girl child that can be sexually abused. So I want you to kind of throw more light on it, that it's both sexes that can suffer this sexual abuse too.
You are so right, Andy. You are so right, and thank you for, we females, sometimes we get carried away. So it's both sides. Even for the males, when the nanny or the caregiver or the parents is bathing them or dressing them, they play with their manhood. Let's hit it. I'm just putting it side by side to us, our buttocks being hit, right? For them too, that could be a form of abuse. Not could be, it's actually a form of abuse. What are you sticking your hand there? What are you doing there? So both ways. When you're talking, whether it's a male child or a female child, as long as all that I've said is done and it gets to the ears of the child, or the child experiences that, then that is an abuse on that child. And remember, Remember, I said at the beginning that child officially is considered any age from 0 to 17.999. What I mean is just before the child clocks 18. Then we consider that person a child. So when that is done to either girl or boy, it's an abuse. Now, having cited this example, there are lots more. But before I run and take the whole time, let me hit on the dangers, the risks.
Sorry,
Right?
Ven,
We hit on one.
before you, yeah, so before we go into the risk, I know we asked the question. I just was reflecting and just mindful of, there was a story, this young boy, and thank you, Andy, for reminding us of that, because it is as rampant for the boys as it is for the girls, more so these days. This young boy, the father had nearly killed him. Why? Because they found the boy was ill, and the father found out the boy wouldn't tell them what was wrong. So for days, finally, somehow, I think they had to rush him to the hospital, and found out that apparently he developed an infection in his anus because he had been sexually abused. He was being sexually abused by the neighbor, and the neighbor had threatened him that if he said anything, he would, kill his family. You know what a child would be really scared about, that sort of thing. So the boy had said nothing, and the father found out somehow and almost killed the child. So they had to rush him to hospital. Now, this is often what we find, particularly in Nigeria. When these stories come out, when the child eventually does talk, the child gets blamed. There's denial. We've heard of mothers who would call their children witches. We just finished watching Happiness, where she was being described as a witch. They would blame the child and say she's actually, if it's a girl, they'll say she's promiscuous, even if she's a 2-year-old. I think Ada had one story like that. They will say the child is promiscuous and she's the one causing it. How do we begin to change this narrative? How do we begin to help people, look into this and change their views and actually give support to the child?
As we were talking, and a lot of scenarios were playing in my mind, Tosin. And I'm just wondering that I hope people listening to this, watching this, would not just isolate these examples that we're given to think that they're the only methods that child sexual abuse can take place. There are many, many other ways. For example, when you put 2 young children to touch themselves and you think that they're just playing, you've abused them. So you're not the one doing it directly, but you are doing something to them, right? And then the other forms. So I just hope that people can listen, people can watch beyond this. People can go and research. Thank God for Google. Google has a lot of resources about these issues, and then you can converse. And I hope that the matter has other ways that people can reach out to them. Please, you've brought this topic here. People would want to know more, and they might come to you. Please, Tosin, Andy, Ada, even myself, let's be open to people to hear. What I'm saying is, adults, the only way is when you go for it, when you look for it. So read about what child abuse is, what child sexual abuse is. Watch about it. There are a lot of films, documentaries that deal with these issues. Have conversations with organizations. Like in Nigeria, NAPTIP is not just for fighting trafficking. They also fight child molestation, child exploitation. They can help you. And I have an NGO called Bosita Made. Call me up. I'm a child protection fighter. And I'm an activist. I can go there and let's deal with these issues, because this issue eats our society. Sometimes you wonder why the society is becoming so rotten, not just with sex, but with killings. Someone becomes a murderer because of what has been done to him as a child, the sexual act that has been done to him as a child, and especially boys. I know we're talking about girls, Andy, let me hit on the boys now. Not that girls do not experience that. Boys' own does not even show. For girls, they get to an age that if that is onto them physically, they get pregnant and all of that. What about the boys? Between them and the nannies, between them and the caregivers, what happens to them? So they swallow their own, and then there's an outburst. Some of them become even armed robbers. Some of them become the nuisance that we see in the society. Some of them become the murderers that we see in the society. It started from somewhere. So for us to safeguard these young people that we call the hope of tomorrow, the leaders of tomorrow, parents, we have to intentionally be deliberate about researching about these things, talking about these things. Do not shy away about having conversations with your child. I give you an instance. A parent came to me and said, "You don't know what happened to me. My 6-year-old girl, the boy went to search the internet. He went to Google and was finding out about how do babies come to be, how a baby is made." It's just like, he asked me one time and I didn't tell him. I didn't know how to tell him. And I told her, you know what? If they ask and you don't say, curiosity kills the bird, right? Or is it the cat? They are going to go find out, and they might find out the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So do not shy away. Use the right method, but do not shy away. It's not scolding your child. It's not demanding from your child, but having one-on-one conversation. You know, you can decide to be the friend at that time with the child. Before you be the parent, have discussions with your children, no matter how young they are. There's this video called Pants, that younger than 2 years get to know about what sexual education and sexual abuse is and how to prevent themselves from having that happen to them. There's so many resources. So find out, research, get to know for yourself, understand it, and then start applying. That's what education is. You know, you understand, you apply. So apply it on your children. Let them have that knowledge from you so that they have the confidence that if something is happening to me or I don't understand something, I can always go to my parents, right? And then we are Africans, right? Even though everybody can watch this, but we're made for communal living. Don't say that is not my child. Don't say that is not my business. Wherever you find yourself, there are many people that work with children, like myself. Is it Bible club? Is it children's group? Different groups. It could be social, it could be religious, wherever. Includes sex education the right way into what you give to these children. So either your curriculum, your activities, let them know. So parents will have a role to play, and we other adults have a role to play. Let's become our brothers' keepers in that. Tosin, I don't know, because I've been talking too much and sometimes you can go off the question. I don't know if I hit the mark with your question.
I think that's...
While you were talking, there was a point that kept on coming to me. You said the adult age is 18. We all know that's it. But yes, we are going to go on very, very shaky grounds now. A situation when a child of 16 or less is considered marriageable. Isn't that a form of abuse in some cultures and religions? Let's say, but wouldn't that, and where does government have a part to play in this? Because here there's a confusion here. When is it child abuse? What age is it officially child abuse? Here we are saying it's 18. Some parts of government say no, it's okay to marry somebody at 10, 16. How do we marry these two things?
It's very ridiculous, this last part that you said. We all have experienced 10 years, right? And we know how 10-year-olds behave. Would you carry that and say the child should stand on its own? What is, But I just want to say that 18 is when adulthood starts, officially. 16, they said, is the age of consent. That's when you can give consent to, like, say, okay, I can do. They said officially too. But here's the thing. Government has its own, and then we have cultures that come to play. But culture were made by man. So we can change that. The point is, you're looking at that child. Can the child really think for herself, for himself? If the child is younger than 18, in my own opinion, as a child protection expert, I say allow, even 18-year-olds, you see the way they behave sometimes, and you're like, for me, I'm like, maybe we should increase the age of this adulthood to maybe 25. Because in Africa, how many 18, 19-year-olds talk more of making decisions for themselves as mothers or as wives? Cultures don't help us at all. Some parts of cultures, there are part of them that are good. So officially, Andy, like you said, yes, we have the official. And officials is when UN, the gathering of all governments, are saying yes to this. And they've said yes, 18 is the age of adulthood. And then they said 16 is the age of consent. Younger than that, it's not an adult. So if either, let me touch a bit of, don't come and arrest me. I'm just saying, whether it's religion or whether it's culture or whatever it is that you're saying a child younger than 18 can marry, then there's a question mark on you. Do you really understand what childhood is? Do you understand the mental development of a child, that you allow that child to become suddenly overnight, become responsible for some other people? Because when you say the child should marry, then you're saying the child should be responsible to other people, the husband and the kids. So I put it to us out there that let's be reasonable and let's be mindful and let's care for our children. Let's be the protectors of our children the way we're supposed to be. Child marriage, mind you, is a form of child abuse. So in a nutshell, you wonder what child marriage is? Younger than 18, child marriage. So I put a full stop to that, Andy.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you in totality what you've just said, and it's sad that it comes to this most times. But let's move on. Earlier on, we were saying now I think we should now break down what's and the various aspects of sexual abuse, because you were about to describe it to us. What's the various departments or the various kinds of sexual child abuse? Okay, so maybe we should go back to that. Tell us, in your own opinion, what is termed child sexual abuse? Is that right?
Okay, can I just say very
quickly
before we go to Ven that I think it's really important that we clarify this, because I think when we talked about it earlier, you've touched on it already. A lot of people do not consider a lot of things to be sexual abuse. You know, like they're like, yeah, okay, that can't be. Should be. We're just playing with them. That's not sexual abuse. So I think it's really clear. I think it's really important that we really honestly, clarify to people that sexual abuse doesn't only happen when a child has had penetrative sex, or when someone has had penetrative sex with a child. I think it's so important to buttress that. So we just go to you, like Andy said now.
Yeah, like we said, there are different forms, and so what Andy asked and what you just said would just bring that to light, right? That there are different ways that you can abuse a child sexually. Let me just speak clearly and simply, okay? Different ways. Let me start with child pornography. There's many children that are made to do things that they're not supposed to do, sexual things. Either touch an adult, please an adult, or watch an adult do something. It's child pornography. Or you click it. There are movies that are X-rated. I hope it's X-rated. There are movies that are X-rated. A child has no business seeing, even taking a glimpse at that, or hearing a word, even a sound from that. If you do that, you're abusing that child, whether you did intentionally or unintentionally. Now, I want to say, for you to help yourself and help the child that is in your care, and also help the children in the communities. Again, I want to hammer, dig in and do a lot of research. You go to Google, you find a lot of things, or call people like us. Let's have discussions so you become enlightened, educated about what it is. Talking here will not dig in deeper than we can go. So there's a lot more than what we say here. When you do that, then you get to know, so that you do not do it to a child, or you do not allow another person do it to a child. I give you an example. There's a community that I've worked with.
What Ada said was, if you could itemize them, like you took up one point and you were going down. So let's just have this. I think that would help give them a broad spectrum of all that could be considered child abuse? Maybe you could
I'm getting there, Andy. I'm getting there, but I just want to bring this to light. I want to say the importance of educating yourself is there's a community we worked with, and we help them to understand what child exploitation is, sexually and otherwise. And a 3-year-old was able to stop that from happening to her. Because then the adults in that community passed it down to the children. We help train the children to know. So what I'm saying is when you educate yourself, you touch a child's bumble or touch her wedge on her breast, you just hit her or you say mistake, she's going to call you out. And that's one way of preventing it from happening to her. So again, like I said, pornography, whether you involve the child in the act, sexual acts, or you make the child to watch or hear, is pornography. When you hug the child, we know what as simple as hugging is. There's a way you hug a person that you know yourself that is not right. And the person you're hugging knows it's not right. That is a sexual act. When you use words, either there are words that I don't even want to say, that sometimes parents in the form of insulting or calling out a child use on a child that has sexual intonations, that is sexual abuse. Okay, and then we have the penetration, whether it is rape or you use your fingers or whatever it is, that is a form of sexual abuse. If you touch the child, breasts, private areas, and private area is not just the front, even the back is private area. Leave the person with the front and back. You know, when you do that, or that rubbing of lips, there are many different things that people do, or oral sex, all that sexual abuse when we do that to a child. Another form is when you allow the child watch you. Parents sometimes can be careless with that. I mean, giving your wife a peck or a kiss on the lips, I think we all know that that's okay. But when you're having the sexual intercourse or all that making out or stuff and the child is there, you are abusing the child, because what are you exposing the mind of the child to? That is sexual abuse. What you read out to the child, what you discuss as parents, what are you discussing? What is the child hearing? You know, what is the child saying? That is sexual abuse. And which one have I not touched generally in just simple terms? I think basically these are the forms of sexual abuse. So in a nutshell, I want to say, whether it's physical touching, directly or indirectly, of private areas, it is sexual abuse. What you play for the child or what the child watches, because the child is under your care, whether by looking at it or by hearing it, sexually, if it has any sexual thing, you're abusing the child sexually. What you do with other adults or other people, right, in front of the child, if it has sexual intonation or sexual activities, it is abusing the child. So just to say that in a nutshell, there's physical, there's touching, there's seeing, there is hearing. Has repercussion on the child.
Okay, thank you so much, Ven. This has been a really good discussion. So the question I have is now about something to do with, the movie we just watched, where we saw Happiness's uncle being the one who, this is her own uncle. This is not uncle-in-law. This is her own uncle. So obviously a trusted relation. What's your view about that? Because I think you made a point around sort of like we Africans, we were a community and the community raises the child, something like that. We look out for each other. But there is an argument to be made around how far you allow yourself to trust the other, your relation. I remember growing up and we had an uncle who lived in a BQ, and for some reason I think I must have been about, I don't know, between 7 and 10 or something, and my mother was very clear, I do not want to catch you in your uncle's room. And I didn't understand why. Now, how much should parents and caregivers, how much should they be trusting? Because especially when you also think of the kind of environment we are in, where people have to work, mothers have to go to work, and you need someone to look after your child. what can we even do to make sure that we have the right people who are looking after our children? You know, how do we balance that out?
Tosin, I know yesterday we had a discussion and I mentioned something and I want to mention it again. It's very interesting and intriguing that you see the home is the first place usually that the child is abused most of the times. And by not just uncles, by the parents themselves. We've had situations like that and you wonder. Now the thing is, this home that we see or that comfort place, whether it's a physical house that becomes a home or people around you that you can call family, can either be the protector or the perpetrators, which is very sad. One word and sound joins the two words, but they're so different. Protector, perpetrator, right? Now, I stress on educating yourself because when you educate yourself, you're not holding it to yourself, you're passing it down to your child. We are not God, but we can pray for God to lead us. I'm a Christian, so I have to bring this to light. On the discerning spirit to know whether this person I'm giving my child to is going to abuse the child or not, because yes, we have to give it to a caregiver. But putting that aside, when you interact with people, you get a vibe about who they are. When a child notices that something is happening to the child and that child already has a comfortable relationship with you and knows what abuse is, then the child will quickly alert you. In fact, if you touch, I have a 2-year-old niece, if you touch her bum, she'll scream at you, "Don't touch my bum, don't touch it." You know, that's her being aware already that there are areas that the person is not supposed to touch. So it's about educating yourself to really know what you're dealing with. And when I say we live as our brothers keepers, especially in Africa, communal living, that's the ideal thing. But the reality that sometimes it is not. So you have to be able to pass on the message to the next person to know. And if a child is talking to you, listen to the child. In the case of Happiness, though she called her mother a bit late, but she called her mother. But because the mother was so ignorant of what child abuse is, talk more of sexual abuse is, it wasn't ringing in her head. Now, children have different ways of telling us what is wrong with them. Sometimes a child will come and sit close to you and not say a word. And you're wondering, is this child all right? We've had cases like that. Sometimes the child will just be saying, "Mommy, mommy," even if a child is 2 or 1. Please, adults, especially parents, when a child does that, I do that with my little niece. As soon as I'm hearing, "Aunt Van," that's how she calls me. I'm saying, "What is it, Naya?" I want to run and go and hear. What is it? Pay attention. It's very important. Because even for adults, you don't just go and shout, "I was raped, someone abused me." You try to find a way of speaking. So it's in becoming educated about this. I keep stressing on becoming educated because that's the only way, is the first step. Is the first step to empowering people for prevention and intervention. If you don't know what it is, you would think the child is stressing you. "I'm tired, I just came back from work. What is it again?" Some children is not just with the uncles, the fathers. A father was sleeping with his daughter, 6-year-old, until he messed up a private area and then he wanted to jump to the younger child. I've had such cases. You know, we're going to call in the legal system and the law enforcement to come and step into it. But for the child, what happens to that child? So if the mother was aware about what this is, will she leave her child to be that way? If the neighbors, that's why I say community, at least one of them heard about this, report it, even if you want to be anonymous. So educating yourself is important because it plays a lot of roles in dealing with what this is. So Tosin, I don't know if I've responded
Yes,
to you.
You did. And I'm glad you touched on, you mentioned something that we were just going to ask. I think Ada was going to ask about the what to do in terms of for those who have actually experienced, where their children have actually experienced it. It can be a really devastating feel when you reflect. Yeah, go on, Ada, sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. I mean, it's, it's a, yeah, when you find out that your child has been abused, what do you then do? And for me, I'm asking this question because, like the devastating story you just talked about, when you find out your own relative or even husband is responsible for abusing your child or is in the process, what do you do? In a culture like Africa, in our African culture, staying in your marriage is a huge thing, right? I actually read a story today about a woman who found out that, a similar story to what you're talking about. A woman found out that her husband had been molesting the first child, 15-year-old, and then she found out because the child said she believed, and the man said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, it won't happen again," and then she accepted him back, and he started to molest the 10-year-old and the 11-year-old. Very similar to this was in the news. I wanted to send the link to yourselves. I'll put the link there for anyone who's interested. And because in our culture, removing the kids is not an option. So what do you do in a case like that, where you find out that, okay, the kids have been or are being or about to be molested, as a parent or a caretaker? What is the action? What's the best action to take?
Do you love your child? Do you love your child? Usually mothers are the ones, and the fathers love their children, have experienced that. But because mothers have carried them in their wombs for 9 months, you're a mother hen, nothing touches your child. So I said culture. It has its good side and it has its bad side. For a man that would kill your child because you're sexually having an affair with your child, what are you doing? What are you doing to that child? You're killing that child. You're killing that child. It might not be directly, but you are causing something to go on. A lot of people who have become sexual abusers of today's children are people who have experienced that as children. So for you, the good parent, whether you are the man that has caught because I've seen a case that it was the mother that was sexually abusing her daughter. So I'm not just hitting on the male, it's both ways. So for you, the parent who would find that out, what would you do? You would kick that person out of your house. You will report him. He needs to let him be the scapegoat. This is my opinion, because these things are real. Even if he does it to an adult, talk more of a child that doesn't know yes from no. That's why the child is a child until adulthood. So you are the protector of that child, and protecting the child has a lot of responsibility, 100%. Even God in heaven expects that from us. That's why he gives us the children. So take that child. If you cannot chase the person that is the abuser out of the house, move that child out of, report to welfare, social welfare, and see, Nigerians, our social welfare department is becoming aware to these things. We need to wake up to. So let's not shy away. And if you're wondering what to do, reach out to people like us and accept the child. What I mean is, do not despise that child that has been abused, whichever method that was used to abuse the child. Have conversations with the child. Let the child understand that it is not my fault. To forgive herself, to forgive himself. And then have conversation for psychosocial support, which is care, love, and attention. Very important. Now, the ingredients could be taking the child to the hospital, reporting to the law enforcement agency, whatever. Feeding the child, doing whatever with the child. But first, love, care, and attention, which are abstract things, but then if the physical things can be used to reach out to the child through that. But the child must know that I'm accepted. The child must know that I'm valued. The child must know that I am loved, so that there's no depression, there's no anxiety. And even if they're coming in, it becomes a process of healing. Not that the child remains for post-traumatic stress or all of that. So show love, care, and attention. I stress it. If you're a caregiver, go and report the family. Report. Even if you want to be anonymous. We people that are in this, we know that we don't have to know your name. We don't have to announce your name, except if you want us to. And we'll take up the case. Do not leave any child to suffer, because the child that suffers becomes an abuser. And before becoming an abuser, you're dehumanizing that child. So do therapy if there's need. Do what do you call it now? Do counseling. We in Nigeria, we're more familiar with counseling. Do not be quiet about this. I'm not saying that you should go to social media like a lot of people do to go and shout it out that this thing has happened to that child. Protect. In fact, showing the picture of that child is wrong. Calling the real name of that child is wrong. You're still abusing the child. So protect the best interest of the child. If you need to move the child away from that physically, the environment, do it. If you need to chase the perpetrator, in fact, they should be jailed, so that others can hear and know. So let's be aware. And then most importantly, not most importantly, very important too, this awareness that we talk about, it sounds because it's overused, but it's very important. A lot of people that maltreat their children, even in the form of this sexual abuse, allowing them watch things that they're not supposed to watch and all of that, might not know. Maybe that has been done to them and they've not been conscious enough to be deliberate on learning these things. Let's do a lot of awareness creation, So again, I will hit read, and we that are in need, if we have time, let's go to communities, even with our friends in group, family settings. Let's create time to talk about this issue so that there's no excuse of I didn't know. Because whether you know or you don't know, an abuse has been committed. The end result is usually not good. So rather than waiting for intervention, let's do prevention first.
Thank you so much, Ven. Thank you very much. I think this has been really helpful. A real eye opener. I can see Ada nodding there in agreement, and Andy smiling.
Yeah. I mean, for me as a parent, and I mean, for us, a lot of us here are parents or caregivers, we have nieces, we have nephews. It's a very strong topic on our heart, I'm thinking, I like the things you've said. I like the cautions you've given us. Yeah, this is not something we can finish in one day. I don't think we can go through everything in one day, because there are lots of things going through my head. I'm thinking, okay, how do we go? How can we get a balance of being cautious, not being paranoid? Is it okay to err, and just be paranoid as parents? Like the other day, my 10-year-old son was like, I want to go for a sleepover. And I'm like, no, that's not happening, because I don't know the people very well. You're not going for a sleepover. At what point do you become, how do you kind of find a balance for not being too paranoid, for me, and I can say that openly now because I found my healing. I was abused sexually as well, by someone who was well known to the family, Unfortunately, I should just say, I don't know if you agree, most times people who are abused by people who are either relatives or very close to the families, because most abusers are people who are already known, to the family and stuff like that. So for me, I think my question, I don't know if it's my dilemma now, and I think I talked to Tosi about it as well, is how do you find a balance? You don't want to be this paranoid mom, but at the same time, you want to also be cautious. You want to take all the necessary precautions, because I honestly do not want any of my children to experience what I experienced, And how do you know this person I'm talking about is someone that was really close, well known? There are so many people like that around us. How do we get a balance? That's for me, so what I'm thinking about at the moment. But yeah,
and I think so thanks for that, Ada. And as you said, we probably need to delve into some of these questions. I'm sure there's so many questions in the minds of different people watching this, and which need to be addressed. So definitely, Ven, we would love for you to come back and help us loosen some of those knots. But thank you so much for your time. Very invaluable. This is a topic. It's a subject that is hard to talk about. It's very disheartening. Many times, even the people who talk about it have been through it. It takes you to dark places that you don't want to go to. But this is how humanity has to heal itself so that it can thrive. And this is, just our way of trying to find a way to help each other. As you said, we're a community to thrive. Something you said that was so profound is the abused become abusers. Most of the time, even when you find adult abusers, they were probably abused in childhood. So, and it's about, I think from what you've said, it's about the early intervention when we find it happen, if we do, God forbid, but if you do come across it's happened to the child, or it's happening, then it's the early intervention. It's the not shying away from it and being scared. And the reason for the denial and the fear to face it is not so, I don't think it's so much that people don't want to help. I think it's just more people being afraid to face their own fears, especially where it happened to them and they just can't believe it's happening again. But I think what you're encouraging us to do, Ven, is to listen, to look out for the child, to look out for children, to listen, watch out for the signs, changes in behavior that could be indicators, and get help. And if we don't understand, rather than shying away and running away from the subject, we should face it head on and find out, what do I need to do here? Research, you kept hammering on research and then getting support, and thank you for that offer. I know you are an expert in this field, and definitely we would love to, if we have people reaching out, we would reach out to you, we would point them in your direction. I know of NAPTIP, I know they too are very, they do a lot of work in that space as well. So thank you for that. And then I think, Ada, there was a movie, or the Pants movie, which I think you're going to share the link as well, just in terms of how to educate the younger ones, because that conversation can be difficult for some people, especially in Nigeria, where we can be quite we hide a lot of things, and we're not quite there yet in terms of openness. So thank you very much. As Ada said, lots of questions would, even from me, I have lots of questions, like finding the balance when it comes to even religious leaders, because everybody sort of almost trusts those religious leaders, but we have had abuse from them as well. So educating everybody about who you trust is not about the office they hold, different things like that. So thank you so much.
Well, for me, for someone who has a growing child, especially she's a true growing female, it's a trauma every day, especially if you're not with them, and you're always praying that God protects this. Because being in the media, you have seen so many of such things happening in the world, and it's really traumatic when you actually think about it. Then I thank you for coming to speak extensively on this, especially the most important thing is advocating it and getting people to be more aware. I thank you for this, and it was really, really enlightening.
Yeah, honestly, I join Andy to say thank you, Ven. This was really helpful for me as well, and I know for many people watching too, it's really helpful. Just to mention quickly that you can contact us if you have questions, on our social media handles. We have, you would see the different handles going on the screen. You can contact us on our WhatsApp number. And also about the movie Happiness we're talking about, it would be really good for you to watch it. And there's going to be a premiere soon. In a couple of days, Happiness will be available on Tumaini Media TV. Yay! So we would also put information on about the link and everything. At the end of this, you'll find out how you can watch Happiness, the movie. Thank you. The tools like Tosin talked about, we would put as much as we can as well. There's the PANTS tool that you can use to create awareness for your children. I think there are other ones as well. Feel free to reach out to us. We'll put Ven's contact as well, because she said for her charity is able to work with you as well. For example, if there's someone who is going through something that that you want to tell someone about, reach out to us, reach out to Ven. We'll put the contact details there. We have tools, use them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ada. And so finally, we have now come to the end of the show. As Ada said, I wanted to just say, if you have experienced sexual abuse, or you have a child, in childhood, or you have a child, or children who have, and you're trying to get help and you're not sure what to do, you can reach out to us on the number you can see on the screen. And we will also post on Tumaini, on our website, we will post there the different places you can get help from. So please, you're not alone. We all have gone through stuff and we're here to help each other. Okay, so finally, that's the last one. Thank you very much for your time, Ven. Most invaluable. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and see you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.